For a couple of months now, I felt like a bit of an outsider. I've been a little too excited for this new Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson film, The Smashing Machine, a film everyone else I know has been writing off because of, well, The Rock. Or more accurately, a film people have been seeing right through as The Rock's blatant attempt at getting an Oscar. Now don't get me wrong, I am not a huge Rock fan. True Karst heads will know that Red One was one of my least favorite films of last year. Black Adam was Black Adam, and, well, I've kind of skipped the rest. But there was something in the air here. I mean, sure, Benny Safdie is directing, and I have historically enjoyed basically everything he's at least co-directed in the past, but I was also way more into The Iron Claw a few years ago than I was expecting to be, which is to say, something about big, strong men being vulnerable on screen gets to me. I'm a sucker for this type of movie. Let's take a few steps back. I think I'm underselling my main draw here. Benny Safdie, you heard me right. Up until now, Benny Safdie has, at least in the film world, only ever co-directed alongside his brother, Josh Safdie. We like to call them the Safdie brothers. Films like Heaven Knows What, Good Time, and most notably Uncut Gems are, in my opinion, some of the most forward-thinking films of their time. Uncut Gems alone is, in my opinion, one of the most influential films of that decade, popularizing this anxiety-driven ADHD type of cinema. People are still talking about that movie, still getting upset over it. To see the Safdies part ways at what was essentially the peak of their career was surprising and, I'll admit, a little disappointing. I've been on the edge of my seat to see what they would do next for a while. And, well, here it is. No, wait. Yep, there it is. Based on the 2002 documentary about the same subject, The Smashing Machine tells the true story of Mark Kerr, an MMA and UFC fighter at the peak of his career, and the challenges in his personal life that threatened to take it all away. Now, I didn't know anything about Mark Kerr before seeing this. I'm very much not a UFC kind of guy. I'm a Safdie brother kind of guy. And I'll be honest, nothing about this is really a UFC guy movie, and it's also not really what I've come to expect from the Safdies either. What is this exactly? All I know is it somehow works. Let's get The Rock out of the way. He's good in this movie. This is apparently a pretty meaningful film for The Rock. Not hard to see why, considering his history in the sport. But it sounds like he's been waiting to tackle this role for a while now, and he really brings it. This is not the screamy, overly showy Oscar performance you would expect from an A-lister like The Rock. It's actually pretty quiet, it's very physical, and more than anything, it's unique to The Rock's strengths as an actor. I can't say I could see anyone else playing this role. I know what you're thinking. Dave Bautista. But to The Rock's credit, he has the kind of charisma that's both easy to see through and easy to win you over, making for the perfect central performance to a character piece like this. He does have to, in a sense, play a character who is playing a character in the film, hiding the fact that he's perfectly healthy, and I think he plays this with a surprising amount of subtlety coming from someone typically known for the most accessible acting of all time. There's also something weirdly uncomfortable about how much bite he brings out every now and then. There's something really satisfying about watching The Rock play someone this familiar and then snapping when the time is right, giving you a peek behind the curtain, so to speak. It does feel weirdly uncomfortable and vulnerable for him. And not to mention, he actually makes it look incredibly natural. You don't get the sense that he's even putting in much of an effort. The character comes easy to him. I'm not really pulling for a Rock Oscar win in a year like this, but I'm not upset at his inevitable nomination. While we're on the acting, Emily Blunt is also pretty good. It's not really anything too crazy for her, certainly not as deep as what she's doing in Oppenheimer, but that speaks less to her abilities as an actor and more to how much depth her character was given in the script. Her character felt a bit more on the shallow side of things, in my opinion. It should really come as no surprise that performances are a standout in a Benny Safdie film. Not only is he a pretty damn good actor himself, but you look back at the kinds of performances that have come out of Safdie films and you realize that's kind of these lads' specialty. I see what The Rock is doing here as no different from what Sandler does in Uncut Gems or Pattinson in Good Time. Actors who've been cornered into specific types of performances given the opportunity to just simply play around and move freely within a film. Obviously, the performances work as well as they do because of how Benny Safdie decides to shoot the film. The camera just kind of moves around the entire time. I could be wrong, but I don't think there was a single still shot on sticks here. It isn't a chaotic movie in the way Uncut Gems or Good Time are, but there is constant movement. The film feels alive every step of the way, which allows for the characters to feel less like performers on a stage and more like people you're in the room with. He pairs that look with this incredibly beautiful score by Nala Sinfro. Funny enough, while watching the film, I was like, why does this remind me so much of my writing playlist, which is mostly her album Space 1.8? Come to find out, it is in fact her, which is way cooler to me than it should have been, but goddamn do the Safdies know how to bring on a cool-ass composer. It may not be the showiest score of the year. I know we're all going to be talking about like 5 other scores, but I do feel like I gotta show this one as much love as possible because I'm really into it. If you can't tell, everything about this film is very loose, very smooth, very jazzy. It's not really the kind of vibe you expect from an MMA film, let alone a Safdie brothers film. It's this aspect that, to me, makes it an incredibly unique biopic. If it is Oscar bait, it's some of the most thoughtfully stylized Oscar bait I've seen in some time. That said, as much as this is an incredible vibe, I do have to admit it's missing that bite that makes other Safdie films so memorable and hard to stop thinking about. In general, I think the looseness of this really comes back to bite in the runtime. This movie is over 2 hours long, and it doesn't need to be. It's shockingly straightforward and, dare I say, a tad predictable, which makes some of this feel a bit flat. A vibe can only get you so far. What I love about Gems and Good Time is how anytime the film feels like it's slowing down, they find a way to introduce an even bigger inconvenience to the characters' lives that you didn't even realize could happen. Here, certain scenarios repeat so much that it gets to a point where you know exactly how a scene is going to go down before it even starts, which is a shame. As much as I am into this more laid-back approach that Benny Safdie brings, you do feel like there's something missing here. All that aside, if you can't tell by the tone of this review, I still feel the need to defend this movie. The Safdies are no strangers to films about addiction, Heaven Knows What being directly about a heroin addict, and Uncut Gems being about a gambling addict. Here, Mark Kerr struggles with an addiction to painkillers. While their work is simply more nuanced than I'm about to make it out to be, and without spoiling, I would say their films typically end on negative notes. They sure as shit capture the idea of persistence and a need to survive in their work, but they almost always feel like races to the bottom. But here, without spoiling, Benny turns the ship around using their own formula, but in a more optimistic direction. The idea of survival has always gone hand in hand with winning in their movies. They're very obsessed with victory, becoming champions. The predictability of this, and well, knowing Mark Kerr is still with us today, gives you an idea of how this one ends. So it makes sense that Benny wouldn't keep you on the edge of your seat on how he survives this. What makes it more interesting is how he redefines what victory could look like to someone like this. How can someone struggling with this kind of addiction in this kind of field find true happiness? That, to me, is what makes this a lot more compelling than your average sports biopic. You could argue, that sounds interesting. Wish the film wasn't such a drag, to which I say, fair. It is a shockingly chill time in a way that doesn't always work in its favor, but even if this isn't really the fiery return I wanted from at least one of the Safdie brothers, I think it is an interesting direction to move in, and again, a refreshingly strange route for a biopic. I guess my biggest takeaway is, if this is what a Benny Safdie movie looks like, what the hell is this gonna be? We'll see. For now, that's what I gotta say. Thanks for watching. Go watch The Smashing Machine and form your own opinion, and before you head out. I want to thank this week's sponsor, Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. With Squarespace's collection of cutting-edge design tools, anyone can build a bespoke online presence that perfectly fits their brand or business. They offer a complete library of professionally designed and award-winning website templates with options for every use and category. No matter where you start, your website is flexible to what you need, with intuitive drag and drop editing, beautiful styling options, unrivaled visual design effects, and more ways to list what you offer, no experience required. Once you make that beautiful website, you're going to want people to see it, and that's why I love their SEO tools. Every website is optimized to be indexed with meta descriptions, and auto-generated sitemap, and more, so that you show up more often on search engines and bring in more of your ideal customers. They also make it super easy to showcase your expertise and engage clients with video content on your website. Upload and organize your videos, create stunning video libraries, and even monetize your content by adding a paywall. Perfect for online courses, exclusive tutorials, and premium workshops. Head to squarespace.com/Karsten for a free trial. When you're ready to launch, use offer code Karsten to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.